Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America Trading, and you are tuned into our podcast, The Secret War on Cash. Welcome. I have with me my co-host, Chris Agelastos. Chris, welcome to you as well. How are you?
Thank you. Good to be here.
Well, I'm great to have you here. Let's say that.
Oh,
What are we going to talk about today? We're talking about Secret War on Cash. We talked about all the,
hmm
the goodies and all the fun that's going on in the financial markets and the economy. And this is financially related for sure in the economy, but this is from the Daily Reckoning, and it's about the war in Iran.
hmm
And we have an intermission, but they're saying the war will resume shortly. And it is interesting because the intermission itself, there's been a lot of back and forth discussion about what's been taking place, and clearly during the intermission, the goal or the objective was talks, communication, and some kind of resolution, perhaps. However, every conversation that's happening, there is like zero agreement by each side. They are in
yeah,
complete opposition to one another, and so that's why most people are saying that this intermission is about to be done. It's like going to the Broadway or going to the theater. You have a little intermission, and at some point the
hmm
intermission's over. You're going to go back and watch the rest of the show, and this is what's going to happen. It's at some point in time, the we all want this war to be no, I would think most people don't want to necessarily be at war,
hmm
but they're saying that the lasting agreement is unlikely. And I don't know how this all ultimately is going to shake out, because it's you know really a matter of, yes, can we annihilate Iran? We can. They're not going to be able to fight the US. They're not going to be able to defeat the US per se. But as we've talked about before, what they'll do is they just will start attacking other people in their region, or just
hmm
inflicting as much harm and damage as they can. And the challenge there is the financial impact that's going to have on the rest of the world. Whereas now they're saying in this, the financial impact, one of them, one of many, they say unless the Strait opens very soon, this energy crisis will enter a new dimension. And that new dimension being, they're talking about $150 a barrel oil is possible in the near term. And if it stays closed for even, it'll go even higher than that if it stays closed for a few more months. So this is it's not just the fact that the near term impact it's having, but it's not even 2 months is not that long a period of time. And as that time goes on, the it's kind of like a multiplier, it seems, in terms of how much financial damage it's going to do.
yeah, and I think too, one thing that hopefully a lot of people realize, we just have very little common ground with Iran. I mean, they really want us to let them do what they want to do. They want us to relieve a lot of the sanctions that we've put on them over the years. And the U.S. says no. We want, if we're going to do any of that, we don't want you to have long range missiles. We certainly don't want you to have nuclear technology. And so, really, this pause seems more like a strategic thing than a possible solution. Meaning, both sides, I think, are actively preparing for this conflict to pick back up. And so, we're still positioning assets, moving weapons around in the area. The other side of it is too, Iran. There's a lot of instability there, right? Like, we took out, I think I heard, two or three levels of their leadership, and so now you have a mix of people in the country, some moderates that are favorable towards talking and using diplomacy. But then you have the hardliners that favor continued conflict, right? So even within their own nation, it's not as simple as it should be when you have a couple of parties coming together to negotiate. So unfortunately, I think it's going to continue. This really is quite literally, like you put, an intermission where both sides are kind of preparing for the next phase. And these formal negotiations have already started to fall apart. So it's anyone's guess, if things are going to resume, meaning talks are going to resume in the next few days, or maybe battle is going to resume.
Sure. Well, and it's a problem for several reasons. They're reporting how in Australia, for instance, their pumps are starting to go dry.
Hmm.
Even in the midst of all this, China is defying the U.S. Blockades that they've created, and so at some point in time, as much as the U.S. is taking this stance, you know, this isn't really just our decision to make. Meaning, like a lot of what does Australia do? At some point, they have to, like, say China's defying this, what's the consequence to that? And if other nations see somebody like China defying it, they're going to say, well, if they can do it, we're going to do it. And I mean, this could become a real mess. And we might find more people siding with, Iran just based on survival or necessity than the US. And that can there's reason the saying is that, as the old saying goes, there's strength in numbers.
Right.
So now, that being said, touching this next article out of Bloomberg is just kind of parallels what we just talked about. Oil may rise to $150 a barrel
Yeah.
if U.S. goes ahead with the blockade, and they're doing it. And
Right.
again, that's where the short term consequence of this, or near term consequence, is $150 a barrel gold. Oil,
Hmm.
and the short of these nations, somehow everybody coming to some kind of resolution with this and figuring out a way to get oil. They're either going to be dealing with huge prices per barrel of oil that is going to have a devastating effect on their economy, or they're going to, as we just mentioned, defy these blockades and start going through it. And I don't think Trump's about ready to back down and say, okay, I'm going to get rid of the blockades at this point.
No, no, he doesn't. He doesn't seem like the type of guy to back down easily. So I mean, this very realistically could be a longer term problem. And they're saying here too, even if tensions ease a little bit and we start working out some of these negotiations and things go a little bit better, next week than they did last week, they're still saying oil is going to stay closer to the $100 range, which is already high, and we're already feeling some of the pressure from that. But if it shoots up to 150, I mean, that's the point where you really, it could cause a global recession, because it's going to affect everybody. Not just us here in the U.S. And in fact, as President Trump has pointed out, we're less reliant on Iran's oil than a lot of other nations are. So, that increase in cost is going to trickle down to transportation, obviously, food, food delivery and manufacturing of products and goods. I mean, high oil prices affect many industries. It's not like it just, oh, I can drive less or I can carpool and it's not going to affect me. It's going to affect you at most stores that you stop at for most goods that you buy, regardless of what nation you're in. So, a short-term spike, that's manageable. We can get through it. But anything sustained that continues is major economic damage, and it causes a lot of problems in the infrastructure, on the supply side of things.
Sure. Well, and that's, in this article as well, from Onyx Capital Group, their managing director, Jorge, I believe it's Montepecue or something like that. He said, what's going on right now, it makes no sense. And in so much as well, that oil should be at 140 to 150 a barrel right now. But he talks about how this US blockade would transform what is a regional fight into a potentially a global fight. And the supply loss is up to like 12 million barrels a day.
Mhm.
And he says, like, traders find it, quote, too crazy for both sides of the strait to be blocked. Hence the relatively calm price reactions during the Asian session, he added, so that things kind of mellowed out a little bit. But he said this in one word is demented. And in an interview, he said it makes no sense what the US is doing because they're so focused on Iran that they are losing sight of what they are causing to the world. And
Mhm.
the pain is in Asia, the pain is in the South Pacific, the pain is in anybody who depends on oil, which is pretty much everybody. And
Hmm.
that's, speaks to what we were talking about earlier. Like, at some point, when are these nations going to say enough is enough and do whatever they need to do to make sure they get their oil? And so
Yeah.
I don't know how that plays out for the US, but I can't imagine it plays out well for a variety of reasons. One, it just is another sign of weakness or vulnerability that we have. And two, we now are going to be put in a position where we either have to fight or react or tuck tail and go away, I would guess. So this is good. When this timeout is officially over, it'll be interesting to see what happens next, and hopefully
Yeah.
we're all next time we do a podcast, even hopefully this is all over. It's just there's not a lot of people out there who are suggesting it's going to be. So all right, Chris. Well, thank you. And
Yep.
for those of you tuned in, thanks for doing so. If you're not subscribed to our podcast, please do so. If you'd like any information or any of our free reports, you can get it on our website, which you'll see in our show description, or you can also text or call us, which you'll find our phone number in our show description as well. Other than that, we look forward to talking more in the future. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.